Duncan, good to see you. Such a long time. I mean, it must be 2 weeks since we
Yeah, I
last
know.
spoke.
It's like twice in 1 month. Crazy.
Now, we're going to talk about Tartaria, but first of all, we're recording this just a day or so before the very big cyclone about to hit.
Oh, yeah.
And you are sort of on the fringe of the whole thing, but how's it all going? People panicking or what?
Well, up here on the hinterland of where Mullaney, Mapleton, and Montville is, I'm at the Mullaney end, and people are pretty casual about it. Like today, there's definitely a noticeable flurry of people. Like I left Mullaney about half an hour ago, and people were starting to queue up to get into the two supermarkets. Um, Eggs are gone off the shelves, but they're sort of in low supply everywhere because they've been killing birds under the ridiculous thing of bird flu.
Oh no, same
And
same down here.
yeah, all the LPG gas cylinders are gone. Everyone's renting or hiring or bought them, expecting power cuts. So I'd like to say that we're sort of a bit casual because we're a bit used to cyclones and we're a little bit inland and up high. But the truth of the matter is, there hasn't been one of these cyclones come down to the coast for nearly 70 years.
Right.
And this is the Sunshine Coast of southeast Queensland. And in that 70 years, you've seen massive coastal development of where they've drained the sort of swampy areas and made canals, and tens of thousands of homes have been built with not really a high awareness of the fact that, we can get cyclones. Before the 1970s, it was not uncommon to have cyclones come down to Brisbane
Mm.
on a regular basis. There are photos in our local hall of damaged buildings and stuff where cyclones crossed the coast and came all the way inland up and smashed into Montville and Hunchy. So, but they all stopped around the mid 70s and none since. So I'm sort of concerned for a lot of the flood damage that's going to occur on the properties along the coast. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it won't be too bad. But there hasn't been a cyclone for 70 years, and a lot of those places are not really aware or experienced cyclones. So it's going to be, an interesting experience. It could be catastrophic for the Sunshine and
Could be.
Gold Coast, but
Mm.
we'll wait and see.
Well, they're normally right up North Queensland, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's where they all start, and
Yeah.
the Coral Sea. Some of them can get a bit of a thing and come down the Queensland coast,
Mm.
and normally they sort of head off towards the east. But there's always this sort of jet stream and surface temperatures of the ocean, which often makes a lot of cyclones coming down to the southeast of Queensland. It turns them around like a pinball machine, and it goes west straight to the coast, which is where we're facing it now. So the wind's gusting now. It's blowing over wheelie bins and some of the gusts. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see another
Good,
24
yeah.
hours from now.
Mm. Mm. All right. Well, look, we are doing a special program at the moment because after our last chat, we never got to talk about Tartaria. And I've had some reactions saying, oh, so disappointed. Looking forward to
Yes,
hearing all about Tartaria.
I'm not
So,
surprised.
all right, fair enough. Now, there's a wonderful story in the current edition of Nexus called The Enigma of Tartaria. What and where was the great Tartaria? Now, we've all heard of Tartars before
Mm,
uh, in our movies and all sorts of things, but never thought of the great land of Tartaria.
mm. Look, this article came about as a result of a lot of people emailing me and approaching me saying, when are you going to do an article telling the truth about Tartaria? And what they mean, and you're probably not aware of this, but you know how many rabbit holes there are out there in the internet, and some of them are, in my opinion, absolutely crazy, like the flat Earth rabbit hole. But
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people out there into the flat Earth,
Oh, I know.
which is basically a sign that the IQ has dropped so far that people are not aware that they have a very low IQ. And the YouTube clips which purport to show evidence of flat Earth pretty much relies on people having a low IQ and a degree of ignorance. And I don't care how many science degrees you've got, if you don't understand basic physics, then your science degree or your arts degree is absolutely useless. But that's a different kettle of fish. But on the periphery of the flat Earth is the Tartarian conspiracy theory. And there's a few variants of Tartaria, but generally speaking, the people who believe and look for stuff on Tartaria, they believe that there are periodic resets of civilizations on the planet. And we're not talking tens of thousands of years, we're talking hundreds of years.
Mm.
There is evidence out there for that. It's pretty nebulous, and I'm still looking at some of it because I'm always interested. I always take any suggestions for research, even though I might have preconceived ideas. Like with Flat Earth, I had preconceived ideas, but I dived into the proofs and wasted many hours of my life satisfying myself that they're absolutely not seeing it and not understanding basic things correctly.
So did you do a story on flat Earth?
Well, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to tell.
I don't
It's
remember
not
ever
flat.
being
And I
on it.
mean, I don't really want to spend an article showing the science proofs to the people proving it's not flat because the people who believe the Earth's flat are not capable of comprehending the evidence that it's a sphere. And that's the problem. Their IQ is so low. If you told them the science proofs, they're not capable of comprehending it.
Mm.
So that aside, Tartaria is an interesting one. The idea of civilizations coming and going and reaching different peaks and being reset. There's an undercurrent that there's a body or a conspiracy group with longevity that oversees these multi-hundred year resets of society and civilization. And somewhere in there comes the Tartarian conspiracy theory. Generally speaking, people believe that there was a global high-tech civilization, generally called Tartaria, mainly focused on that whole sort of northeastern part of Asia and Russia, which is a great wilderness and which looks very big on maps because when you lay a globe out on a flat Mercator system, you're going to get a lot of distortion in the upper hemisphere land masses. So when you look at a map of the world on a piece of paper, Russia looks absolutely huge.
Massive. Mm.
Africa looks in proportion to what it should be, but when it comes down to the facts, is you can actually get all of Russia, all of North America, all of India into the continent of Africa, and you've
Mm.
still got room left over. So, and people use that as evidence that the Earth's flat. I mean, it does my head in. You know,
It
getting
really
back
does.
to, and it's a representation of a globe onto a flat piece of paper, and that's what happens. But anyway, I won't go off into that. So getting back to Tartaria, now I need to stress, I absolutely 100% believe that this planet has had very advanced civilizations
Mm.
that peaked and have been wiped themselves out with nuclear war. And I believe that there were some of the earliest civilizations on the planet where humans definitely achieved very high degrees of technology without being so warlike. I think that there was a lot more peace in the early days, a lot more oneness, maybe without mentally appreciating it. It was maybe just sort of innately people weren't in conflict with each other. But whatever the case, my point is, I absolutely believe that we're talking in the tens, maybe hundreds of millions of years ago, which is a bit controversial, but there is evidence in the coal seam layers of high-tech civilizations. So in my theory of everything, I believe that some of the very first high-tech civilizations achieved space travel,
Mm.
went out and populated the universe and mutated themselves a bit. Some, sprouted wings, others gills and scales. And some of them totally forgot their mythical homeland, Earth, which they would not have called it Earth in those days. And others hit civilizational peaks and problems and decide, okay, we need to go back to our petri dish origins and get some more DNA or do something. So there's a lot of narratives of what we would call non-humans or non-Earth people coming to Earth, getting out of spaceships, looking exactly human,
Yeah.
like us
Yeah.
in the 1950s and 1960s and saying, well, we're actually your ancient ancestors and
Mm.
this is a big time of change. We're coming back to do some science research to check on a few things and to see how you are. And maybe you shouldn't be dropping atomic bombs and
Good idea. Yeah.
you
So
shouldn't be doing this and that and the other. So
I've
I
always
want to
believed.
get back to
Yeah, but
Tartaria before I go
hang
off.
on before you do that.
Yeah.
I've always believed that the Earth was seeded from beyond. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a look. There's trillions of galaxies just in our universe. Trillions of them. I saw the facts the other day. Now, to think that there's no life out there, that's rubbish. But surely, I've had contact from the other side saying basically we were seeded like the whole New Age, not New Age, the the European invasion, shall we say, of South America and whatever, that brought another world, the New World. And I believe that happened, and I've been told, a long, long time ago, but we started off as a colony.
100% agree with you, except my version of everything implies that Earth was one of the original petri dishes. And that's because of the mass extinctions and the sheer incredible number, the trillions and trillions of individual species on this planet and others that we're finding. Every alien that's landed on the planet and engaged with human narratives always suggests there's only one or two, maybe three or four species of life on their planet.
Mm.
And there's a lot of commentary on the majesty and the history of Earth. So I also believe that we have been reseeded, that humans have been wiped out on this planet after having civilizations that have come and gone, they've wiped themselves out. And I believe, yes, humans have been reseeded on this planet multiple times. But the original life forms on this planet, if you look at the mass extinctions and the sheer number of creatures that were not in existence in the fossil records, then there's a mass extinction, and the creatures after the mass extinction are a completely different order of magnitude in everything, in terms of complexity, etc. And then you have one mass extinction where after which suddenly you find the division of sexes where there was no male or female recognizable in the fossil record before that mass extinction. And after that, you can find absolute skeletal evidence of a male and a female
Mm.
version. And I mean, they still watch this space as they're, digging it up. But for a lot of people who are into dinosaurs might recognize that it's very hard to show male or female because they all look the same. And it's an actual fact where you've got different named species are actually the same species, but of different sizes. They were given different names because it was presumed, oh, this one's twice the size of this. It must be a different species because
Mm.
it's on a different continent.
Yeah.
So my theory of everything, I think we are one of, if not probably the original petri dish. And I believe that many life forms of this planet have been taken and seeded elsewhere by choice and for various reasons, including humans. Humans have been taken from this planet, maybe against their will. Maybe you could say there was a spiritual permission given, maybe physical, I don't know. And we definitely have been transplanted elsewhere. And at times when there's been no humans here, it's been reseeded.
Mm.
That's what I feel
That's
based
right.
on the
I'm right with
historical,
you.
the geological, and also the regression narratives. You look for a commonality in people who do past life regressions and things like that. But look, if new evidence emerges, I will change that picture. I'm not fixed on it. It's my working model so far. Now, at some point, we
Yeah.
need to get back to
We
Tartaria
do indeed, yeah.
because Tartaria doesn't just stop at the idea of a global civilization with high technology. So the Tartarian people believe that a few hundred years ago, maybe more, Tartaria was a great global civilization with free energy, and that the Tartarians were responsible for building very interesting buildings in all sorts of countries, Africa, Australia, Europe. They believed that after the Tartarian civilization was destroyed, a lot of the narratives include what they call a mud flood, where stuff fell out of the sky and increased the ground level, which happens continually anyway at a small pace. But we're talking about a massive deluge of material raising the ground level in most parts of the earth by meters, not inches, not feet, and in a quick period of time. And they cite photographs of European buildings where, I don't know how to describe this, but
Mm.
you're going downhill, and the fact that there's um, subterranean levels to a building or to a city is taken as evidence of a destroyed ancient civilization, and the people who reset it are involved in a cover-up, so we don't realize that there was a previous civilization. So I'm talking about people that I've dealt with who ring me up, who've walked into my shop, and they 100% believe, for example, in central Melbourne, in central Adelaide, Bendigo, there are buildings made in the 1850s, 1840s. I think they're called Federation style or whatever, and they're big, brick and ornate. And they were building similar things in London and across Europe and parts of America. So the Tartarian civilization believes that we humans weren't capable of building those. We
mm,
didn't have the IQ, the brains, the materials. So therefore, all those buildings in the middle of Bendigo and Melbourne were created by the Tartarians. And so they were there before Captain Cook came along, is their assertion. And when questioned, they basically fall back on, I'm a builder, or I know builders, or I've contacted building firms and I've showed them the buildings and asked them how long it would take them to build that building, and it would take 20 years and millions of dollars. So the conclusion in their minds is therefore we humans didn't build those. They were from a previously advanced high-tech civilization. And it's interesting because the ornate structure of some of these old buildings from 150 years ago, I mean, they're quite complex. There's a lot of nice decorative features. Some of them go up very high. Quite a few of them have got inbuilt lightning rods on the top. And all this is taken as de facto evidence of generating free energy. The lightning rods that are, not so blatantly obvious or a bit disguised, all free energy.
mm.
And the controllers of mankind have covered it up. So,
Hang on, before you say that, how come there's no legend or evidence in the Aboriginal society about all of this?
oh, there's 100 questions which demolish the Tartarian narrative
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, they don't even count Native American, Indian, Australian Aboriginal. But in Africa, there's a couple of places in Africa where you could actually argue that there's quite advanced old stone cities of mystery.
Mm,
Um, more, in my opinion, evidence that there were giant humans, maybe 1,000 years ago, who did such structures, and they've sort of fallen into being used by successive generations of humans and reused, etc. A bit like the temples of India, which we're told are 1,000 years old, and you look at the cutting tools and technology of India 1,000 years ago, there's no way they could have made these temples. They're many thousands of years old, possibly going back to the Younger Dryas destruction, which is around 12, 13,000 years ago.
mm,
And as mankind has survived whatever catastrophe that was and rebuilt, they've reused those temples on the high ground parts of India that were not submerged along the coast. Because don't forget, since that Younger Dryas event, which many people attribute to destroying the whole idea of an Atlantean global civilization,
mm,
the sea levels rose. So right now in our modern society, we have most of our cities on coasts. So if there was a 300-foot sea level rise, and a lot of humans were wiped out, the humans 100, 500 years from now might not even remember there were coastal cities except in myths and legends.
mm,
And it's pretty much that case. So
mm,
where archaeologists have gone looking for submerged cities off the coast of India, they're finding them. A bit like finding Troy, which was supposed to be mythological, and finding it means, well, maybe the stories of the gods were true.
yeah.
So yeah, the thing with Tartaria is in this civilization, and so of course when Tartarians when people watch a YouTube clip and they're getting a taste of something that they want to believe in, and don't forget, I've got to stress this to people. There are people out there who are just into money. And one of the easiest ways to make money is to make a YouTube channel full of believable bullshit that takes existing bullshit and truth and mixes it to what people want to hear.
Yeah.
And I call it hopium, or I mean, you can have fear, you can scare the bejesus out of people, and it will go viral, and people will click on it. And whether it's true or not, it doesn't make much difference because the YouTube channel creator is in it for money,
Mm,
not for spreading truth. He might say, "Oh, I'm here spreading truth, and I'm being persecuted. Send me money to keep me going," and they fall for it. They send them money. I cannot stress enough how many hopium scams are out there. Nasara, Gassara, the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, the revaluation of the dong. I won't even touch cryptocurrency because that's too
oh,
volatile. A lot
yeah,
of
yeah, that's for
people
sure.
have got emotional and financial investments in it.
Yeah,
And
well,
like
I
I
can
said, I think
assure you that we are not making a penny out of this YouTube coverage on Radio Advert. In fact, it cost me to put it on. So rest assured, everybody.
yeah. Now, the interesting thing is when you dive under the YouTube channels to see, well, what evidence is there for the legendary global civilization of Tartaria? To your astonishment, you can find mentions in ancient travel journals, ancient maps have all got Tartary, Tartaria, Grand Tartaria. And so you're talking about maps going back to 1500s, 1600s,
Yeah.
which is starting to circulate around Europe. Because by this stage, the Portuguese and the Spanish and the Dutch have got huge ships and they're sailing around the world, British East India Company, and they're literally landing and saying, okay, we claim this continent, we claim this coast, we claim this city, and away they go. So this was a time when there was a lot of exploration and a lot of maps were required, and maps were becoming more and more popular and sought after, and people were doing the best they could with maps. But imagine a world pre-internet where you've got a lot of rumors coming from so-called reliable sources. And I mean, the main problem with the Tartarian civilization thing is, and you'll see from reading this article, is that it was a generic name given to a whole region of northeastern Russia that Westerners hadn't gotten in and explored. And the few that had, um, you could argue that they were trying to capitalize on the lack of awareness of other people gone there in order to get financing for another expedition there. Because, I mean, expeditions into unknown places were costly.
Mm.
And
Well, it
if you
only
could cut,
opened up with the Silk Road, didn't it?
yeah, well, the
Yeah.
Silk Road was a lot further south, but the Silk Road was the beginning of Western explorers traveling up into there. And
Yeah.
as the more over the years, as they moved up into there, into those regions, they were, becoming aware of natural boundaries, that there was no, massive city here. I mean, we did an article about a year ago about dog-headed humans,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of reports of dog-headed human cities and towns in that whole area of Russia. But you'll never hear a Tartarian researcher talk about it because it's just doesn't fit. So, I mean, what my point is there were a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation coming out from the people who did venture into that land, and the ones who wanted to go back and needed money maybe embellished it a little bit. So, maybe they can say, oh, there's a city made of gold and things
Mm.
like this. So there are hints and scraps in some of the travel journals which you can get translated from Latin into English or whatever. And you get the impression that this is a vast unexplored area. Possibly it's the Kingdom of Tartaria with a capital city. So there are some accounts where there's even a flag for Tartaria with an owl on it. But it's yeah. Now I need to digress a little bit about this in terms of the source of this article. The guy who put this article together, when I approached him, and he knew exactly why I was approaching him, was a guy called Paul Stonehill.
Mm.
He's based in America, but he is steeped in everything to do with UFOs, strange creatures, ancient cities, ancient mysteries of all of Russia, most of Asia, all of Eurasia, and into North Africa. And so
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
he has been able to access files and journals and books and stuff. He is a very diligent, deep researcher
Mm.
into all the mysteries of Russia. And I cannot stress enough. People think there's mysteries in North America and Canada. That's pittance compared with the stuff, the volume of stuff, the crazy mysteries and unexplained things coming out of that whole area of Russia, which was called Tartaria or variants of Tartaria in the maps. And you can see as time went on, the maps called, referring to Tartaria got smaller and smaller because, other areas had been correctly named for a country, or whatever. So at the more as explorers went in there, the region called Tartaria got smaller. The rumors and the claims about cities and kings and royal families disappeared because it was based on nothing.
Mm. But
But
there was
to
also
help
a
get the
link to
funding,
Genghis Khan, wasn't there?
oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, the Tartars, I mean, it's a great big conglomerate. I mean, you need to separate Tartars with Tatars from Tartars. I mean, Tartaria has been spelt many ways. And, I mean, we all know English language wasn't really solidified in terms of what the correct spelling is for things until only a couple of hundred years ago. So back here, people were taking liberty with spelling on the understanding that phonetically, people, the person would know what it's about. These days, we're a bit anal about the spelling of stuff to get it
Mm.
right, which is fair
But the
enough.
original Tartarus was also linked with the Greek of the
Yeah,
underworld.
I know. I mean, there's so many interesting. I mean, I was surprised at just the things that fed into it. So
Mm.
the author Paul Stonehill includes a bit about Tartarus and how it first appeared in history, and he says, look, I mean, if there was any researcher on the planet in the Nexus space who um, who would be able to get to the bottom of whether or not there was an ancient mysterious civilization called Tartaria in Russia. It's Paul Stonehill. I
Mm.
mean, he has got no skin in the game either way. He has access and he's had access to meticulous records. I mean, for decades. This isn't just a recent thing. He speaks English, he writes English, he's able to translate, from Russian and etc. And he's got a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos which are being shadow banned. I mean, whoever rules YouTube does not want Paul Stonehill's videos to be widely watched,
You're
which is a
talking about
shame.
AI
Why
here,
I
I think.
mention it,
Mm.
why I mention him. So if anybody was going to get to the bottom of it, it would be Paul Stonehill. And if there was evidence for an ancient city or an ancient civilization, he would be the first to be shouting it from the hilltops.
Mm.
So, for a lot of people who want evidence in this article that Tartaria was what they think it is, you're going to be disappointed. But at the same token, hopefully you've still got the IQ and the intelligence left to read this article, to
Yes.
appreciate it, and to realize that on this one, you've got to put it down. Humans did build amazing buildings 200 years ago, and that you can go to local newspapers and you can see the discussions about the tenders for supplying the bricks in Bendigo. And I mean, it's not hard to go to the National Library Archives of Australia, Trove, TROVE, and look up the newspapers of Ballarat and Bendigo. I mean, Bendigo, for those who don't understand why I mention it, it's hundreds of miles north of Melbourne, in the middle of nowhere, but it was the centre of the biggest gold rush,
Yeah.
in this hemisphere, some 1850s. I
Mm.
mean, literally, it sprung up as a result of a massive gold rush, and they're still finding masses of gold down in that whole area
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now the
But
price
there's
of
been a
gold's
lot of,
high.
getting back to Tartaria, there's been a lot of uh, stories about it, covered for hundreds and hundreds of years from scholars and people all over the world, right through until 2020, when the Russian Geographical Society said it was inhabited by the descendants of Atlantis. I mean,
I know. And
so
I
I
mean, look,
mean,
I mean, this is
this is
something people,
accepted now.
yeah, this is something people need to realize is that, in the West, we've got these stories of Atlantis was a wonderful spiritual high-tech civilization that, got destroyed either by an asteroid or by some of the high up people who were turning to the dark side of the Force, which is Edgar Casey's sort of narrative. And but it's pretty clear that, you're talking about a high-tech global civilization with maybe space travel, but at the very least are able to travel from continent to continent. They're helping to build very large stone cities in different places with a similar technology, and we see all the evidence for it. But it would probably be a bit logical for the idea that some people might have seen what was coming and decided to pack up their servants and their equipment and
Mm.
technology and jump on one of their crafts and fly to a safe part of the planet like South America or Central America or Northern Africa or India or parts of Russia and try and re-establish a presence there. The idea that some of these people left Atlantis and moved to North Africa in Egypt is especially the case because you see this influx of high technology in terms of the art, the architecture, how stones were cut and moved, is in the oldest part of ancient Egypt.
Mm.
And as time went on, technology devolved, architectural skills devolved, hieroglyphs devolved. It's like there was a massive influx of a very high tech injection of science and technology into ancient Egypt. And they were obviously treated as gods. And the people around them took them in awe and built cities and did what they wanted. They mined the gold. But obviously, these people at some point died of old age, and their servants died of old age, and the people living around, the priests, etc., None of them knew how to work the technology.
no.
And I mean, one of the interesting things coming out of ancient Russia is the number of places which had functioning robots thousands and thousands of years ago. Again, this is part of why the Russian society was talking about remnants of Atlantis, is because there is evidence of very ancient high technology in those parts of, I mean, yeah, and Paul Stonehill talks about it, but we're talking thousands of years ago, not hundreds of years
Mm,
ago.
mm,
And that's the big difference. Tartaria is hundreds of years ago, not 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, you're back to Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu and, well, something big that was some global civilization that came to a crashing end. And the technology, I mean, if we all had a massive global event right now, how many people would be able to keep, get back into making cars or tractors or generators. I mean, forget computers or
yeah.
TV screens or things like that. I
We'll
mean,
be back to walking. Yeah.
we use them, but we wouldn't be able to reproduce them if we went back to the Stone Age. I mean, unless you, even if you had the skills, you wouldn't have the equipment. You wouldn't have the tools. Excuse me. So yeah. Now, the other thing is, I still wanted to point out there is still mystery in that whole region that used to be called Tartaria. And one of the mysteries, and I don't know if it's mentioned fully in here, but it's still on my radar to be resolved,
Mm.
is there are parts of the Great Wall of China
Ah,
which are
yes.
clearly meant, to be stopping people from the south going to the north, not
And the
stopping people
North
from the north
invading
coming
us
into the
out
south.
too. Mm,
Yeah, so there's definitely parts of the Great Wall, and tourists have commented on it. It's like you can only access the wall from the north in some parts.
mm,
And so it was, the suggestion is it was built by a northern-based empire to stop the people from the south coming up. So there's still there's still mysteries to be unraveled. Um, there are parts of the Great Wall of China that are very mysterious in terms of age, and there are other parts that are eminently, inherently traceable to their age because of the stone. And you can see parts of the Great Wall are constructed differently from other parts.
mm.
And
Have you ever walked on the Great Wall?
no, I've never been to China.
I have. It's an amazing experience.
Oh.
Absolutely.
I know where they take where they mostly take the tourists is
Just
organized so that, it's
just
safe.
out of Beijing.
You get good photo shoots, but
Yeah. Mm,
there have been quite a few Westerners which have been allowed to explore and go along, and a couple of them made YouTube clips about it. But there is still mysteries to be resolved in
mm,
that whole part of the world, and there definitely is evidence of a multi-thousand-year-old um, outpost of a high-tech civilization
mm,
there.
mm,
And
mm,
yeah, I mean the in terms of the UFO sightings in that part of the world completely taken differently over the centuries than in America or in Europe. I mean, in terms of like the humanoid creatures will get out and have chats to the locals, and the locals will be going, "Oh yeah, what's going on?" And they'll be saying, "Oh well, we stop here regularly because Earth energy comes up and we use it to recharge our battery," or you know, "We're doing this because of this." And I mean, I've got to say, the Russian people are pretty, what's the word, pragmatic. Um, Inherently, it's like in their cells, whereas the
mm,
Westerners will sort of go, you know, they'll just a completely different headspace, more
mm,
excitable in the West,
yeah.
more alarmist, more more flighty. But in the Soviet, I mean, have you ever been to Russia?
No, no.
Oh yeah, I mean there's an air of pragmatism. They'll accept stuff. They won't get overly excited unless they've had a lot of vodka.
Fair enough.
And it's very hard to phase Russians. I mean, they've been through a lot over the centuries. I mean, the number of countries that have tried to invade and take over Russia goes back hundreds of years. And half the countries of Europe have had a go.
Mm, mm,
Some a couple of times. And again, they're still facing it. And
yeah.
it's a hard thing. So we've put maps in here. And that was a great journey of learning for myself too, digging up old maps
Mm,
because some of these maps give detail, which, as you'll see towards the end of the article, again leaves more mystery. There's this massive stone wall running north, running south to northeast on one of the maps, and I'm sort of thinking, holy crikey, I've got to get Paul onto that. And we've got to, figure out who made it and when.
Mm,
Again, this is not hundreds of years old. This is thousands of years old. And I don't think any Westerners have ever been to that location because it's like hundreds of miles. And this is a very rough, inaccessible part of the world up there. It's to this day, it's still not easy to traverse and to explore. You need helicopters,
mm.
and then you've got different sealed off military areas towards the coast where you're not allowed anywhere near, um, unless you've got direct permission from the very top. So there is some mystery and magic to be revealed, but unfortunately none of it plays into the Tartarian narrative. So
Well,
that's
one
really
thing I'd like to just throw in here is the fact that, as I said before, Tartarus in ancient times was the underworld, where underneath Hades, and
yeah.
Siberia is part of Tartaria. So what happens now? Siberia is like the underworld for all those people who have been sent there by the Russians over many times,
Yeah.
because they virtually are the living dead a lot of the time. So a very interesting historical connection.
Yeah. It's my forays into looking at the paranormal of Russia and Asia. There's so much more to come out, and people are excited about the big cases in the West. I mean, just move over. It's just so much more to come out. And even though the winners do write the history books, there's not a lot of winning civilizations in that part of the world who've got any interest in stamping a narrative over the past, just because. I mean, the last big culture to come from there, you could say, were the Mongols, but
Mm,
even they are pushed over more from Central Asia rather than Northeast Asia. Yeah, so yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and I learned a lot diving into it. But yes, for anybody waiting to hear about the Tartarian global civilization and free electricity, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. But that's what Nexus is about. I mean, we try and get to the bottom, and I found in the last 10 years that I'm pissing off people in our space who are sort of opposite what the mainstream narratives are, and some of them have gone so far that they're annoyed that I'm not into flat Earth or Tartaria, or that I haven't done huge articles exposing how Australia is a corporation on the New York Stock Exchange. And I've gone to the New York Stock Exchange listing online and I've looked for how Australia is listed on there, and it's not. And all these people saying we've got a business number, and I'm going, well, yeah, you need a business number if you're paying GST, which is what Johnny Howard and the stupid Australian Democrats lumbered us with, back in the day. We didn't used to have GST, and then we got it. As
mm,
soon as GST came in, everybody with a company had to have a business, or everyone with a business had to get an ABN, and that's why there is a government instrument with an ABN, and it's for GST on securities,
mm,
etc. So my point is that the counter mainstream narrative followers and purveyors, yeah, some of them are going too far to the other end of the seesaw, and they're just rejecting everything out of hand. And sadly, a lot of people don't have the smarts, the intelligence, the common sense, or the IQ to be able to discern where the middle of the seesaw is, and find a sense of balance in what narratives you're exploring.
mm.
But yeah.
Well, I think we have to look beyond and deeper than the obvious and the facts, so-called facts that we've been fed with.
But
Duncan?
don't get me wrong, if I was into making money, I would have done a flat Earth article and I would have put in all the evidence that people are putting in there for. And maybe the last paragraph I would say, well, I don't think it's flat, da, 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 da. But it would have sold a lot to the people pro. I mean, it does my head in. I mean, I went to the Facebook page of the Flat Earth, one of the big Flat Earth things, and they proudly said we've got members all around the globe. I'm still thinking they don't even, they don't believe. I mean, I don't know whether Flat Earth people are very insulting and demeaning of people who don't believe it, who are called globalists.
Mm,
And, I mean, the insults, the innuendo, it's a whole, you're talking years of people coming up with crafted insults and crafted put downs. And it's always to do with globies or globalists. But Yeah, to see them saying Flat Earth's got members all around the globe on their Facebook page, it just means that there's a disconnect. You know what I mean?
This was the reality. Duncan, as usual, it's been fascinating. We started off talking about Tartaria and we went in so many different directions. Thank you so much. And this has been a wonderful special that we did out of the blue. And thanks to those people who requested the story on Tartaria.
I just hope they're not too disappointed.
I'm sure they're not. Duncan,
All right, thank you. It's been a pleasure.